British Spy Stories, Season 1. Spy or Traitor. Episode 8. It is raining in London. Sir Bernard Mackintosh sits at his desk, reading a document headed Top Secret, a label reserved for only the most sensitive documents that pass through the hands of the British security services. His glasses are perched on the end of his nose, a habit he adopted early on in his career, partly due to his failing eyesight, and partly to help his youthful looks gain more gravitas. His hair was black once, but now has a dusting of grey. He has the demeanour of a reliable uncle, a friendly, wise man, who has the time to listen when others may not. He finishes reading the report and puts the file back down on his desk. He prefers to deal with paper, despite the growing pressure to have everything on screens. His brain still treats real words, written on real paper, to be more accurate than anything held electronically on a database. He knows that this doesn't make sense, but he can't get past 30 years of working in the same way. MI6 Tech Branch are all very clever, but the job of security can't always be done with clouds and mice. His mind is interrupted by a knock on the door. It is his secretary, Lawrence.
Mr. Perris, sir, from Investigations.
Thank you, Lawrence, says Sir Bernard. Miss Perris, shall we sit over here?
He leads her to the sofas under a large window in the centre of his 3-bay office.
I have my report on the Stranraer termination, Sir Bernard.
Right.
I thought you'd like a verbal outline of my findings,
she says methodically.
Yes, go ahead.
She picks up her tablet computer.
As you know, Stranraer was one of our most experienced snipers. He had been in the service for 10 years and came from the Special Reconnaissance Regiment. He was active in Iraq with SRR as part of Task Force Black Knight, and after that Operation Ilwa in Afghanistan. With us, he's completed 124 target ops.
You can't get much more experience than that.
On the day in question, he received a resource order at 0214, and that had originated from Agent Blackhawk and had been allocated by London Central Control to Stranraer.
Right,
he says.
He confirmed the order and flew out of RAF Bryce Norton at 0724, arriving 0958 local time in Berlin. He vacated the Berlin airbase in the company of Blackhawk at approximately 10:45.
She looks up from her notes.
They were then off comms until Blackhawk contacted London Centre at 1907,
she continues.
How did we know of the Stranraer termination?
Asks Sir Bernard. Ella flicks through several screens, then reads from the device.
It was posted by GISS at London Centre at 1803.
The Belgian Security Service?
Yes.
Sir Bernard frowns.
That's odd,
he says.
Why them?
They discovered the body, Sir Bernard.
Are you saying that the first thing we heard of the death was from another country's security services?
That's right, sir.
She shifts uncomfortably.
My team have interviewed all of the people involved with the Stranraer death, except Agent Blackhawk, says Ella.
And why not her?
We'd not be able to get in touch, I'm afraid.
Has she not called in on comms?
Only once since that day, sir, from Barcelona.
Why was she there?
We discovered later that she wasn't. She'd bounced her comms. We think she was in Amsterdam, but we can't be sure.
Doesn't want to be found, then. Should we take that as a guilty plea?
Impossible to say, sir.
Even so, it sounds like a duck, Miss Perris, he says. Arrange with my secretary, Lawrence, to get all of the key people in a room. Latest tomorrow, please. I need a comprehensive view so we can identify a plan to rectify this.
Yes, sir.
invite you, me, Lawton, and anyone that Black Hawk has spoken to since Stranraer's death. I need a full profile of her known contacts, aliases, and everything.
Sir? Ella Perez gathers her things and hastily makes for the door. Catherine watches Rich during their dinner together. She's not really concentrating, but he hasn't noticed. Part of the reason for her choosing to be an assassin for a living is the control that gives her. Now, this lack of control is frustrating. In her 20s, she had no idea what she wanted to do. She had joined the Naval Officer Cadets to travel the world. Part of basic training was the use of weapons, and she had excelled in armaments. She had come top of her group, and was taken aside before the training was over, and offered accelerated tuition by the special boat service instructors. Within 2 years, she was moved to the security services as part of the elite C9 assassin group within MI6. All this waiting around is bloody getting to her. She is used to being able to address any problem immediately, but she isn't in a position to do that just yet, and it's gnawing at her stomach. When she had dropped off the condom at the Marylebone testing lab, they had said they were overloaded, as there's a large anti-terrorism operation going on in Wales. They could only promise 48 hours before a result. This leaves her with 2 days to keep pretending to Rich that he's kosher, which she doesn't relish. She raises her hand and orders more wine. The MV Quarrel cuts through the azure Mediterranean, heading southeast away from the French coast. Seagulls flock off the back of the boat, chasing the swell and churn of the disturbed water. Gabrielle decides that attack is the best form of defense, and heads directly for Ulrich once the boat has navigated beyond the point of no return, where the ship's captain is free from the strictures of the harbour authorities. "You're not like the other women I meet," says Ulrich, as she pours a glass of champagne for them both. "Is that good?" He is smooth. He doesn't respond, so she can tell that he knows enough about humankind and disloyalty to tread carefully over new ground. "What are they like, the other women?" "More enthusiastic to get to know me," he says. "Maybe it's you that needs to be enthusiastic." She smiles at him. He laughs, honestly. Sasha starts to walk over towards them. Ulrich makes the smallest gesture with his hand, and the woman turns and goes back to the others. This man is dangerous, she knows. His control over people around him is witness to that. It reminds her, too, that she must make the most of every second in his company to learn about her prey. "What do you do, Sebastian?" "Run my businesses." "Doing what?" Her voice is dead calm. "Trading between people who make and people who buy," he says. "A middleman? How did you get into it all? Was your father in this business?" He stops, not certain of how to answer the question. She knows that he killed his own father 5 years ago over a drug smuggling disagreement. "No," he says quietly. "My father wasn't in this business." She gives him a minute to recover without him realizing it. They both look out at the waves and the sun as it bleaches the horizon. Then talk on, her being pushy, him gradually realizing that she is a force to be reckoned with. "Can I show you around the ship?" he says, after 3 drinks. She nods, and he drags out the bottle of Louis Godoret champagne from the ice bucket next to him. They drop down to the lower deck, at the back of the boat. "Look, here we have some jet skis. Have you been on one? You'd like them." "I love speed, you're right," she says. They continue around the deck and end up at the prow. "What made you buy a yacht, Sebastian?" "Escape." "To where?" she says, deliberately not asking the obvious other question. "As far as I can go," he says.
That's always been my ambition. Never stop.
It's all about the destination for you, then, not the journey? She asks.
He takes a swig from the glass. The length of time between her asking and him answering is getting longer as she gets more personal with her questions.
You're very interested in what I do, Charlotte.
You're fascinating,
she replies. Ulrich is gradually tensing, she can tell, but it doesn't faze her.
Self-made millionaire? Boy made good? Great story.
Are you a journalist?
She shakes her head.
What do you do? He says.
I change things for the better.
Don't we all?
He takes her hand and walks down the stairs to the lower seating area.
More champagne?
I'm fine.
He pours the drink anyway. She moves her glass away and he pours it on the carpet.
I did say I didn't want any, she says.
Ulrich is not used to being treated like an equal.
Come and sit with me, he murmurs and grabs her wrist, but she pulls away.
I'll stand, thanks.
He ignores her and reaches out again. She turns and punches him cleanly in the stomach, winding him. He tries to lunge for her, but misses and falls. She turns to walk back up to the rest of the group, but he keeps coming and crashes into her body at full speed. They fall back onto the sofa behind her. She pulls one hand across his face, fingers out, catching his eye sockets and nose. He cries out in pain. She pushes him off her with her leg to give him extra momentum. He turns and smashes his champagne flute on the table, then slashes the serrated edge through the air. The razor-sharp remains of the glass come within a centimetre of her face. She grabs his arm and hits his hand hard with all her force. The glass falls away to the floor. The full impact of the pain reaches his brain, and he pulls his arm back. It gives her time to grab the champagne bottle and bring it sideways against his skull. He falls back momentarily dazed, the bottle crashing against the bulkhead. She reckons she has 1 minute before anyone else can get into the room. Gabby hurries out and down the far side of the boat where no one is socializing. Then she hears a yell from behind her as she reaches the back section. They have found Ulrich. She rips the cover off one of the jet skis, grabs her dress, and tears off most of the skirt, then yanks the jet ski up and pushes it with her full body strength towards the water. She can hear shouts coming from the core of the boat, but she keeps pushing. The jet ski crashes through the cowling along the back of the yacht. She jumps on it in mid-air, starts the engine, and it hits the water with a bang. The craft sinks low in the swell. Then the water swirls down and round the machine, and it leaps with power. She opens the throttle, but doesn't let herself look back until she is 50 yards away. Ulrich's bodyguard is ripping the cover from the second jet ski and is on her tail. The two machines bounce through the warm water of the Mediterranean. Flecks of moonlight jump up from the spray as Gabby pushes her craft as fast as it will go. Somehow, the bodyguard is gaining on her. She twists on the throttle to get more thrust, but it is up against the end stop. 30 yards of clear water separate them now. The land is approaching fast. The boat's captain had not gone far out to sea, despite the feeling on board of setting sail for the wide blue yonder. She looks back again and sees the man balancing an Uzi on his left forearm while steering one-handed. She is expecting to sustain fire, and it comes quicker than she thought. Bullets spray either side of her as the guy grapples with gaining control of the gun and the ski. She knows he'll have a better aim next time as she mulls over her options in the 2 seconds she has of breathing space. The bodyguard is 20 yards from her when he masters the art of steering and firing. The Uzi again spews metal across the water. This time he also hits the back of the jet ski, but misses her. He was closer than the first time, and she doesn't want to be there the next time. Her hands are getting cold and her body is aching from the incessant bouncing of the ski over the waves. She maneuvers to get on a course for the coast. The jet ski cuts a diagonal slash through the water against the tide, still pounding her back with each rise and fall. Gabby can see the white cliffs of Cap Ferrat now clearly through the black of the night. She leans into the turn and carves a vast arc across the sea, heading back west towards the coast of Saint-Jean. The bodyguard follows her path. The rocks at the southernmost tip of Cap Ferrat yawn over her out of the water. She needs a landing place and knows that the Club Dauphin that sits high up on the coast provides a path for tourists from the hotel to the water's edge. She slows to get her bearings. The guy is close now. Each second counts, now more than ever. He steers straight towards her jet ski and the two craft collide. Gabrielle is knocked sideways, slips off her seat, and only her grip on the handlebars keeps her from falling into the water. Her ski yaws over at a frightening angle, at the limits of its buoyancy. Gabby's legs crash into the water. Then the engine revs as the outlet rises and gasps for air. The craft disgorges a column of water up into the night as it struggles to push forwards. The waterspout pushes the bodyguard momentarily off balance as he takes the brunt of the impact. It takes all of Gabrielle's strength to haul her wet body up again and throw one leg across the seat to regain her balance. She twists her wrist and the craft booms into life, pushing it down in the foam and catching the bodyguard's craft in the eddy. She pushes on to the cliffs. She can see a tiny stretch of sand at one section of the rocky shore and drives straight for it. The jet ski rises on impact with the land. It's out of control but going in the right direction. It skids sideways and Gabby jumps out of the impending crash. The jet ski bounces twice and comes to a shuddering halt at the edge of the beach. The bodyguard has regained his composure and is heading for her across the water. She pulls her jet ski back round and points it towards the sea. She rips a tattered length of her dress, turns the throttle full on, and ties the fabric around to jam it into place. Gabby hauls the craft back into the water and points it at the man. She removes the fuel cap and hits the start button. It roars into life and heads out in the night towards the approaching bodyguard. The two jet skis ram each other full on. They rise up in the air with the man above them. There is a second of silence, then a thunderous ripping of the night sky as the jet skis explode together, creating a balloon of fire against the silent glow of the moon. Gabrielle turns and runs up through the rocks to the club. She reaches the pool where a handful of guests are enjoying the night. She collapses into a chair by the bar, her hair wet and her dress in tatters.
Madame, can I get you a drink?
It is a barman, professionally silent in his movements.
Margarita. Double the tequila, please.
Madame? He disappears as he appeared, without noise.